Hey everyone, it's Andy. Huge content warning up front for this episode. Most of the time we talk about Neon Genesis Evangelion, the last episodes of the series, and they're full of tough things to talk about, as well as definitely things that are not appropriate for young listeners. So just a quick heads up in case there's some issues you'd rather not be listening to. You can look up some of the themes of the latter episodes of this show. Hopefully you've watched them in advance because there's lots of spoilers as well. Welcome back to Winging It, podcast about chicken wings and Evangelion.
Yes.
You know, this is the sub-pod where we talk about Japanese anime while eating different chicken wings.
Give me those flats.
Can you call it a wing, though? And because I would always expect it to be a drumette. To continue our discussion from last episode, by the way.
It's three parts, right? You have the tip, the flat, and the drumette. They're the three parts, the three segments of the wing.
But the flat is the actual wing, right? Like I guess the tip is also part of the wing.
No,
Yeah.
all three of them are part of the wing. Like if you take a chicken apart, it's got three pieces in the wing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair. All right. Welcome back. This is We Were Gamers, episode 175. We've been doing some Neon Genesis Evangelion watch through the past couple weeks. Before we get started, congratulations to the San Francisco Shock on creating in the second season of Overwatch the most boring finals I've ever watched of any esport.
Oh no.
Dang, that is condemnation right there.
I mean, they kind of in the last section, I didn't watch all the games, but I kind of like read the recaps and stuff because I'm somewhat interested in seeing that esport grow, right? Blizzard's pretty invested in that kind of thing. Bud Light is like super invested in it. People are paying millions to license teams. It's a deal. It's something I want to keep my eye on as a...
Are you worried about the esports bubble economy?
A little bit, yeah. So... You know, last year was my dudes from London, the Spitfire. They won, and it was a cool match, man. It was like I don't remember the final score, but it was close. The finals were interesting. The playoffs were interesting. They came back from like the edge. People didn't think it was possible because they had a really bad late end of the season, but the Shock just kind of walked over everybody for the last couple months. They walked over everybody in the finals, in the playoffs, everywhere. And they 4-0'd in the finals, and it was never close.
Yeah, it's boring.
Ouch.
It happens. I mean, it happens in every sport. You know, there are Super Bowls. Sorry, Michael, but there are Super Bowls where your team just doesn't show up.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that describes... No, not every Super Bowl the Panthers have been in, but...
but it happens in a lot of Super Bowls. The Rams did it last year.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there are more blowouts than great games in Super Bowls lately.
Mm-hmm. So that happened. The Shocker, the second champions. That's a thing. Does anybody have any news this week? I have something.
I felt like it was a light week.
Really? Yeah. It's that time of year where maybe the biggest news is that by Christmas we'll have a Switch stylus.
Oh, wait, really?
Oh,
Yeah.
I totally missed this.
That's the biggest news of the week, though. Yeah, in Japan, they're releasing a Nintendo branded stylus for the Switch. So one would hope. Now, hold up, maybe not here by Christmas, but hope by Christmas.
I mean, I guess you could import one by Christmas.
You could. I just don't get why we don't get the same stuff as EU and Japan get. Like, what is it about us that we don't want a steelbook that looks like a Game Boy that has The Legend of Zelda on it for our version of Link to the Past or whatever?
I mean, that's a really good question because I got the current version, and I wish that I had that one.
Right?
The Steelbook.
What is it about? Oh, what is it about us that says I want the Pro controller with a bad design on it for my version of Smash Brothers instead of the GameCube and GameCube adapter, like every person that plays Smash wants, like EU got? What is it about me that says I don't want a stylus for my Switch because I live in America? Come on. The Wii U shipped with one. It should have had one to begin with. But, hey, good news is good news, right?
Yeah, I mean, hey.
Yeah.
It'll help your Mario Maker.
Yes, actually. A stylus would be very convenient for that.
You mean like they got in the UK?
Damn. My heart. The knife. Why do you twist it so?
Oh, well, that's about it. That's the news. And speaking of twisted hearts, it's time.
I was going to say twisting a knife into your heart. That's a good transition.
That is, I mean, it literally happened. Spoilers.
Well, guys, yeah, let's just go ahead and say spoilers for up to episode 26 of Evangelion. No, we're not going to talk about End of Eva here. So,
not the movie, which is called End of Eva, right? The movie is called End of Eva?
The movie is called End of Evangelion, and it composes of 2 extra long additional episodes of the show, which you are not seeing here.
Hold on. So the movie,
yes,
is it a continuation of this? Like,
I can't answer questions about what the movie is or how it takes place without you watching it because it gives things away.
But the way that this ends, God,
yes,
it's 2 shows. It is a 24-episode show and a 2-episode show.
Is it though? Is it? It doesn't.
Yes. Is it?
Because it doesn't feel over. It didn't feel over to me. It felt like maybe there was a planned separate ending, or this wasn't the planned ending. I don't know. Hey, before we get into the episode, so you can't answer.
No, I can't tell you stuff
question
about what happens in the movie, or I'm going to give you massive spoilers for the movie.
Okay. Before we get into these episodes, we haven't talked anything about we're not Evangelion experts. If you haven't guessed from the last 4 episodes I was talking about this show, this is JJ, who knew the show beforehand and has now rewatched it, so he has a little bit more of a bead on what matters and what doesn't, maybe. But maybe the outside part of it is what we're missing. Some of we're not Japanese. We've never lived in Japan for an extended period of time. So we're missing some stuff outside this that probably informs some of this stuff in the show.
And I think there's also a lot of personal, like, trauma and like depression and stuff that you can bring into this and read into this text here.
Yeah,
that
there's definitely
maybe we don't have enough experience with it in order to, give that kind of a take on it.
There either appears to be very deep or very light understanding of Freud and Jung.
Oh yeah, I would argue light, but we can have that discussion.
It could be deep, it could be light. It depends on your understanding of Freud and Jung. And
I feel like someone handed this guy the 101 textbook, and he was like, his mind was blown.
You mean it's like Terrence Howard?
Ooh, another good callback.
Yeah, last week was good. Okay. Let's set the stage for a second, though. Did you guys know when this came out originally? It was like
the initial 90, late 90s.
90, okay. So Japan at the time is in a bad way then, overall, right? Like, around Japan, they have a catastrophic lost decade, basically, happening, where they have a bubble of prices in the 1980s. It all comes crashing down in early 1990, and to this day almost has not recovered itself. So that is very fresh, I think, in some of the understanding of this. I think maybe the apocalypticness of it.
Absolutely. And I think I alluded to early on, but the creator has said that basically this show has a extremely deep connection with him personally, the stuff he was going through at the time, and his like very, very pronounced depression that he was in during the course of creating this.
So I would go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to say we get a lot of that in the last couple of episodes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So, before we delve into the last 2 episodes, let's talk a little bit about all the plot.
Can you answer for me what because I looked up some theory stuff, not of like theories about what's happening, but theory of the things that we saw, like what does it mean and stuff. And some people were referencing, and I didn't read these parts because I assume it's like a re-release, but what is Rebuild?
Yeah, so Rebuild is a thing that was put out, I think, in the interim between the time when the anime ended and the end of Evangelion movie came out. I think that's what that's about.
Okay.
There is also a new series of Evangelion movies that have been coming out in Japan for several years now, telling the entire story over again from the beginning, in theory, with like a bigger budget,
but clearer this time,
and time in order to actually tell the story. So
okay, maybe that's Rebuild.
It could be. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't seen any of those new movies. 3 of them are out, I think, or 2 of them, 2.5, 3, something like that.
All right.
And there is another one coming out this year or next year, something like that.
Copy that. All right, Michael, take us through some of these early episodes, man.
All right.
Late episodes.
Yeah.
Things move fast immediately.
Yeah. So we get 21. That's where we're picking this up, right?
Right.
Is it really that far back? It doesn't. I can't.
It was. Yep.
Yeah. So this is where we start to get some of the backstory behind the start of Nerve.
Right. And you guys were very hesitant when I wanted to cut you off here, but this was why. Because this episode is kind of like the whole backstory of Nerve and Gendo and Yui and Fuyutsuki and all those guys.
And the backstory comes around because what?
Fuyutsuki is kidnapped.
Misato, everybody gets kind of maybe like comeuppance.
We see a lot of stuff happen here, though. But it reveals a bunch of things.
Everyone starts to think about their histories, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. The current events eventually tie back into a lot of this stuff, so we needed to know it.
And this is the adults flashback episode.
There's some big reveals in there, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Michael.
So we get as part of Fuyutsuki's kidnapping and interrogation, he talks about how he first met Gendo, whose last name was not Ikari. Twist.
Right, yes.
Yeah. And introduced him, I believe it was, to Yui.
Right.
Whose last name was Ikari.
Yui was Gendo or Fuyutsuki's like promising postdoc or something like that.
Is it assumed? University student. Is it assumed here that Yui is like rich and or what of a high social status? It seems to me, maybe.
She seems. I got the sense that she was kind of like a rock star in academia.
Okay.
The way I saw it was that she was very well connected. She like knew a lot of important people.
She's important, and Gendo is not.
She has connections and he doesn't, right?
Yeah, he's effectively... Yes. Well, he's a criminal, right? He gets arrested or something.
He's kind of made himself infamous in certain circles, is I think how I read that.
Okay.
And Fuyutsuki is then being interrogated by the seal... Zila.
It's all over the place on who says what, I think.
The giant black monolith, guys.
Yeah, what is the deal with that? And some people can see that, this is a spoiler for later, but some people just see them random places.
They can make themselves seen selectively.
Something.
You maybe missed an important thing there about that last thing you're talking about, but yeah, in specific, Maybe. I don't know. We'll see when we talk about it.
Did I? Or is it only because the one guy could see them wherever he went?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So they're interrogating him, and he starts talking about Yui and them. And then what was next?
It starts filling in everybody's backstories, right?
Yeah, basically, you find out that Evas are also the theory that we've always known, right? That Evas are also, they call them gods, but it essentially means they're angels, right?
They're like artificially made angels.
Yeah, which is just confirms what we already knew. We re-see the second impact again and again, according to my earlier theory that you debunked. Gendo was magically not there.
Oh yeah, he definitely was magically not there.
Mm-hmm.
Intentionally.
Yeah. And then it gets quick here, and we get the history and cliff notes of like things they've discovered as, what was they called it something else other than Nerve before it was Nerve.
Because it got
the name
disbanded.
was I'm looking at a summary. Gerhin.
Yeah.
Geirin. It's a German word, and it means brain.
That helps. That helps some info, because they were worried about the Magi more than anything at that point, right?
The Magi were under development for sure. Yeah,
that makes some sense. The Geofront was built by angels.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was actually the second one. They had found the first one in the Antarctic.
Go figure.
Mm-hmm.
And we basically get confirmation that Rei is totally a clone of probably Yui.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we get the idea that she is a clone, right? Like, there's more to it, obviously, later, but it's basically revealed she's some sort of non-biological entity.
Yes. They don't tell you in 21 here. You don't see what's happening, but you eventually do see that, there's cloning happening.
Yeah.
Yep. We meet Risato's mother?
Ritsuko's mother?
Ritsuko's mother.
You meet, greet, and say goodbye to all in one episode.
That was quick.
Yeah. It's a pretty quick thing that you see Gendo, like, after his wife is dead, Gendo is now fooling around with Naoko, who is Ritsuko's mother, and while she's building the Magi.
Yep.
And then eventually she encounters Rei, like very young child Rei.
This is where we find out that Rei is replaceable, quote unquote, and she, in theory, kills Rei.
I mean, not in theory.
And
she strangles her.
Fact.
And then kills herself.
And then, in fact, commits suicide. Or dies
I guess,
by suicide.
Sorry if you didn't see that one. Well, you've watched the episode, so content warning for everything.
Yeah, there's a lot of content warning for the rest of this. Just sorry for anyone who's triggered by that stuff.
And then Kaji pulls off the double cross.
Right.
Once he's released by Zila, and then gets shot off screen.
Well, he gets shot on screen, but you never see who shot him.
Well, they end the episode and he goes black, and then you hear him get shot, right? Which for one episode I thought, oh, maybe, and then Misato proves that it's not true.
I mean, you kind of heard in the other one Kaji say, like, oh, if you don't hear from me again,
right.
This was in the last set of episodes, right?
Yeah,
that I'm gone.
It's on her message machine, yeah.
And then she calls him and gets the message, and then just cries at the end.
Do we... Well, it is a spoiler for the end of the show. I don't think it's ever revealed who shot him.
No, it is not.
Might be a spoiler for the movie, but probably not. I'm guessing it was Gendo, based on later evidence.
It is never revealed who exactly it is that shot him, but it is definitely pretty heavily implied that it was like, hey, he knew too much and had to be taken out kind of situation.
All right, so then we start. What did we start? We start 3 episodes of history class on our pilots, right?
We also get some of the like young Misato, young Ritsuko, young Kaji stuff in here, just the like backstory on
I
them.
really feel like most of that is expendable.
Yeah. And then 22 is the Asuka.
Asuka's
the start
here.
of her slide.
Crazy mom and shitty family.
Oh gosh.
Right.
Literally, her mom is in the psych ward with the kid. They're staring at her, and the dad is hitting on another person.
Yep. What appears to be the doctor and or nurse or something like that. Yeah, he's a real piece of garbage. And you can see the mother constantly not really attached to that doll that is not Asuka.
Yeah, thinking that it's her daughter.
And I think that we also get the understanding the sync rate is dropping on her. Unit 1's grounded. And
sorry, there was one more important part. Like the mother commits suicide, right?
Oh yeah, but that's revealed multiple times.
With the doll, like intending to have killed both of them.
Yeah, so I was going to get to that in a minute.
This is the first time we get that, though.
I was going to get to that in a minute because
it does come back.
It comes back around, but also it seems like we're starting to see the pilots, all of them, even if they have like Shinji's good sync rate, right? They're all starting to prove that they're pretty psychologically damaged.
It turns out these kids had really bad backstories, and this was a bad idea to start with, maybe?
Also, they're only 14.
Right.
I started to wonder here if this was about, like, the whole show was about schizophrenia.
I think there's a reading you could do that involves some of that, for sure.
Sure, yeah.
Because it seems like Shinji especially, Asuka for sure, she might even be revealed later to be, like, bipolar or multi-personality.
They don't explicitly say that in any of these episodes for sure, but there is a lot of like, what does the unconscious know versus what does the conscious know, and like that id versus ego versus like psychology stuff going on, not only here but like as we go throughout these episodes for sure.
Before we get to the plot of this, which is kind of important, what happens here for later, I do have to say this show did something that I think is kind of despicable and is what I understand to be maybe a cultural thing that might have gotten better in the last 20 years of Japan. But Asuka's period is blamed for much of her problems here.
Yeah, the treatment of women is pretty bad. It was kind of throughout this show.
This is an explicit episode of this show. I think I'll probably put a warning at the front of this, but this is a pretty dog shit thing to do.
Yeah,
they literally have her lying in a bathtub that is empty, but the color of blood, and then the next scene is Misato telling everybody that she's on her period, so that's why she might have low sync rates, and then you can kind of start to see other references to that in the show, and I think that that's just garbage. I have to say that out loud. Because it made me feel really uncomfortable about watching the rest of it, hoping that that wasn't going to be a theme going forward. But thankfully, I don't think they stuck with it after this episode.
Yeah, they certainly don't stick with that explanation for why Asuka has low sync rates.
But it was bad. It was bad to begin with. There's a
lot of bad stuff going forward.
There's a world here where the show focuses on that these are teens and they're going through teen things, and that is a teen thing, but is not handled the way that you would handle it if you were doing that story, I think. But we can move on to the plot of this episode since it's still uncomfortable. Like I said, Unit 1 was grounded, right? And an angel shows up, the 16th angel, right?
Yeah, this is the one that hangs out in space, right?
No, this is 15.
This is the 15th angel? This is the one that hangs out in space, though.
Yeah.
The 15th angel. It hangs out in space, and we get the effing hallelujah chorus.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, it projects the light of God as its attack here.
Yes.
Some very subtle orchestrations.
They're really going for subtlety here.
I loved the minute that kicked on. I really did.
I will say this show has great music throughout. If questionable as the on-screen subject matter may be, their musical choices have been quite good all through.
Gendo ungrounds Unit 1, or is it Unit 0 that throws the spear? I can't remember.
No, it's Unit 0 that throws the spear in this one.
Right.
Unit 0 takes the spear out of Adam and throws the spear to the moon.
Yes.
Well, the point was they were going to shoot it with a laser rifle, right? But it was out of range of the rifle,
right?
And Asuka charged up anyway and decided to fire it, despite them telling her not to. And then, out of options after firing their one shot, I guess, because apparently they only ever get one shot with these things.
.02.
Yeah, they Gendo goes, okay, go get the Lance of Longinus from Terminal Dogma.
Yeah,
and again, the names are so cool, but so pointless.
I don't think they're entirely pointless. As I think that maybe the creators think they're pointless.
There is a little bit there that you can read, but I don't know that the symbolism goes very deep.
Maybe we'll get to it at the end.
The one cool thing I want to talk about as she throws the spear and destroys the angel is that the spear like turns into some kind of like sweet jet powered lance or something as it goes into space.
Unfolds and
then it folds up to go through space, and then
right. Oh, cool. So cool!
Circles
and then it enters
the moon.
It enters orbit around the moon. Yeah,
which maybe is important. I don't know.
The spear has been treated as very important.
Well,
thus
the
far.
moon actually ends up kind of being important. We find out later, I think. Ray's episode comes up, and I feel like it's pretty light in terms of what to talk about with Ray. She just talks about not knowing who she is and all that. This is the 16th angel.
Yes.
And there's no one that can beat it. So I don't think there's much important before she decides to nuke her Ava.
So the way the angel attacks her, it like tries to infect her, right?
Right, and then it tries to infect Ikari too. Shinji.
And then it kind of mimics the thing that it's doing is it's kind of mimicking the emotion of the person that it's infected back at them. So the Ray conveys that she's lonely, and the angel says that it's lonely, and it kind of builds a bunch of shapes of previous angels as it's getting all gross. You can kind of see the other angels' outlines in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then, it takes Unit 001, and, now that it's sort of absorbed Ray, it starts mimicking Ray to Shinji, kind of like reflecting Ray's maybe desire to be with Shinji or to her love of him or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, probably not, though.
I mean, I don't know. It seems like something's going on there. And then, she decides, well, no more of this, and then blows herself up.
Yeah, nukes the Ava. Bye-bye. She's replaceable, quote-unquote, again. So there's only one more angel to go. My question here, and this is the beginning of when I start to think that maybe the show didn't understand what it wanted to do in a bad way. Why, if there's only one more angel, are we building tons and tons of Avas?
Good question, Andrew.
It's just not explained ever.
Yeah, there are a whole bunch more, and the board has some big plan.
And they're hurrying to build them.
Yeah, they're about to put into motion.
And this is why I felt like those last two episodes, like, okay, maybe you could say the show built to this. That's fine. But this part here and kind of some of the next episode, what's the point? You know?
Right.
I think that is a... Oh, go ahead.
Well, you can go ahead. I was going to jump back into the storyline here.
Sure.
So at the end of this episode, right, we get this is the first time, like, you get an explicit cover-up where Ray is very clearly dead, and then all of a sudden is back.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And she can't remember anybody.
And then says, I think I'm the third.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and then we move on to 4. or 24 here.
No, there's way more
before
here.
we do, there's Gendo throws Ritsuko under the bus.
And she's pissed.
After the Rei has to self-destruct herself.
Yeah.
Hold on.
This is part of this episode,
23?
yes.
3?
Yeah, this is 20. This is the back half of 23.
Back half of
You're
23,
right. You're
yeah.
right. I forgot.
So
That's right. I thought this was 24. Okay, yeah.
She gets pissed after she has to stand very uncomfortably naked in front of the monoliths.
Yeah, Gendo's like, this is your fault, and sort of, instead of going to bat for his subordinates, kind of throws them completely under the bus.
Again, shaming women for their bodies.
Yeah, not great.
So she invites Shinji and lures Misato down to Terminal Dogma.
The Eva graveyard.
Yeah, and shows them sort of the dark side of what's been going on.
The evil secret of the dummy system is that actually the dummy system is just Rei wired up to this thing.
Rei clones,
yeah.
Yes.
But the most important part of the episode, Rei is not a clone.
Well, she's a manufactured vessel, right?
She's an Eva. In theory, right? She's
built, and we'll get into this more in the next episode. She's built to house the soul of, maybe soul in quotes, of an angel.
Of Adam, right?
Of Adam
here.
In theory. So she is, in theory, if she is soulless and they put a soul in her, then she is an Eva.
No, hers isn't Adam. Hers is Lilith.
Oh, right. Yes, she is meant to be Lilith, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Which this is the first mention of Lilith. Okay. Again, confirmed at the beginning of 24, Asuka's mom hanged herself. She remembers because Kaji is confirmed dead again.
Just in case it wasn't clear enough to you that he was shot, he is super dead.
Right. I wrote down here, and maybe you guys remember, and again, this is an explicit episode, so I wrote down here, Gendo is a shitbag. I think it's because we get confirmed here that he sleeps with Ritsuko. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that is just the worst.
Yeah, in fact, in 24, or in 23, right? All of 23 is that, like, her actions are because of
what we find out here.
What we find out here, which is like even more messed up thing, because now all the stuff that she was doing before, because it seemed like it was wrong and she was against it or whatever, actually turned out because now she's a spurned lover, which is like even crappier thing to do to a person.
Yeah.
So like, instead of like her, having been a scientist and finally come to, morality or something, no. She's just doing it to get back at Gendo.
So here's where we need to start about talking about children. The fifth children.
Yes.
Kaworu.
Kaworu, yeah.
Nagisa.
Kaworu.
Just like, he says he's just like Rei. Quote unquote. Children. There's two parts of this that I want to talk about. One, if Rei and Kaworu are definite, whatever you want to call them, clones or Evas, or, well, we'll talk about what he is in a minute. But if they're manufactured, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that imply, because they keep saying the children and the way they translated it, that Shinji and Asuka might also be copyable at some point?
I did not make that read.
Did that grab you guys at all? Is this one of those things where we don't get it because it's from Japan?
I wouldn't get so hung up on the children part of the name. That's what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I took it that way. I think that the way I read it was that Rei and Kaworu are two of a kind, right?
Manufactured.
Well, sort of. But yeah, in the sense of being manufactured.
Okay.
And I mean, it is clear, at least pretty quickly, you find out that Kaworu was sent by Seele, right?
Yes, he is not.
Yes.
He's not anybody's choice, but Gendo seems to know that he was coming and what he was, right?
Right. Gendo had figured it out pretty quick after he showed up, right?
Right. Nagisa is easier to say than Kaworu, but he mentions a lot of stuff very quickly here. He knows what he is, and he implies he knows that he's a clone, but he also implies that he knows that he's an angel. Because he calls himself, man, the children of Adam and the children of Lilin are what we start, or the Lilin are the Lilin are the children of Lilith,
right?
And the children of Adam are angels.
Correct.
He has red eyeballs. This means that Rei is also an angel, yes? Or at least inhabited by an angel.
I don't get the impression that Rei is currently inhabited by an angel, but that she could be. Right, at this point, anyway.
Then I had the weirdest deja vu of the weekend.
Okay.
Ode to Joy starts playing in the middle of this.
Yep.
And I had just watched Die Hard, where Ode to Joy plays a significant role in that film. So that was weird. And they play the whole thing, man. All like 30 minutes of Ode to Joy. It just, once it starts, it didn't stop. Not for the rest of the episode. And I thought that was another great, they had great musical choices for all the problems with women in this. Man. Okay.
So there is a read. So before we get into like what happens with we'll call him Nagisa here to be the same. And there is a read here where he's introduced to Shinji, right?
Yes.
And he and Shinji seem to get along pretty well.
Yeah.
Which is maybe the first person that Shinji gets along with whatsoever.
In a uncomfortable way for some people, I would think.
And yeah, so I mean, there is a read here that pretty clearly paints Shinji as gay.
And that the world he has trouble with is because no one saw that he was gay before, and this guy does.
Possibly.
I definitely got that vibe. 100%.
I also absolutely read it that way. However, there are people that have explicitly rejected that for other reasons. I don't think is. I think it's wrong. Like you just read it and watch it. It looks like. I mean, I got that vibe extremely strong. Did you see that, Michael?
Yeah, I think I got some of that too, and it explains a couple of other things that kind of went on. One, there is a moment between Misato and Shinji.
Right, early on where she touches his hand.
Yeah. And I did a little reading after the fact after watching some of these episodes, and apparently that was a much more explicit scene in the original version. Like what her intentions were in that scene.
So the translations changed, and they said, like, I believe she previously said like "I love you," and then later changed to like "I like you" or something like that.
Right.
And similarly here with Kaworu, there was a scene here where they're together in the bath, and he says "I love you" to Shinji, and now later is and in this version is changed to say "I like you."
Right.
And people were livid about this change.
I did not know about
the wider
any of this.
Community.
Wow.
I intentionally didn't tell you about this because it would ruin, what I thought was a big moment here.
Yeah, no kidding.
So and that's why I waited to go back and read about it.
And the change of words from love to like is not a small one. That is a big deal.
Now, so I always got the vibe for the rest of the show, other than that scene where you could read it both ways between Misato and Shinji, that Misato was a substitute mother, and that was the idea, right? She was supposed to be the caretaker and mother figure. So if she had said, I love you to Shinji in a non-bedroom, I would have 100% thought that it was a mother. And the way that it was rewritten this way, apparently, I didn't know that it was rewritten, but the way that you have it, or retranslated to definitely still feels like maybe in that scene she's touching his hand and trying to comfort him. Don't worry, you know, people like you, and he says no, go away. You could read that way. I could see both there. It's tough to think about Asuka also, and Shinji's relationship with Asuka, and not wonder, oh man, in the light of the last 2 episodes, what all these relationships mean to him and what part of whose personality they are.
Right.
You wonder too. It sucks that out there are a lot of people denigrating and saying, and including, I think, some of the show's creators saying that the biblical references are not deep, because one could say, if Adam is the progenitor of a race of angels and gods, and Kaworu is inhabited by that spirit, that angel spirit, this could be God telling Shinji that he is unconditionally loved. Which obviously Shinji's characters needs the whole show, right?
Right. Well, it's sort of the biggest tragedy here is, I mean, what happens with, you know, Kaworu and like his first real like friendship with anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had not thought of that reading, Andrew, but I don't dislike it. I think that's a pretty good one. There's definitely you can connect those dots in a way.
Given the last 2 episodes, which we haven't talked about, that's what my return to this very important episode says to me, maybe. But it's tough because you know a lot of the people that have been out there and said, no, it doesn't mean anything religiously. It's like, I don't know, man. Like, you have to do a lot of work to make it mean nothing, actually. You know?
Yeah, there's... God, I would see. This is why, like, cutting this, adding these last 2 episodes here is so painful, because there's so much about what goes on in those that I want to relate to other things that we can't talk about.
Oh,
here.
In the movie, you mean?
Yeah. So but we'll, you know, let's talk about what happens here in 24, since that is wholly contained.
We see Gendo with a hand eyeball.
Yes.
Yeah. Which
do we find out what that is here?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Yes and no. Yes and no. It's not explicitly said.
No, it is by
Yes. By who?
There's a flash to Seal, who I think in conversation with Kaworu tells him that he's inhabited by the soul, but the body resides with Gendo.
All right.
Right. So these are the 2 halves of Adam.
Right. Yeah, so the hand is Adam, and we're left to wonder, okay, well, if that's Adam, then what the heck's going on?
What is the giant thing crucified, or used to be crucified, down in the
Ava 1 is confirmed to be Yui, because he's talking to it, obviously.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
As I said earlier, Lilith spawned humans and Adam spawned angels, but we also get the black moon versus white moon.
Yes.
And
a thing which is completely unexplained.
Yeah.
It is, but I'm guessing here, and I'm just guessing, but I think they mean the actual moon because of the way that they referenced the spear and all that sort of stuff. And the moon does not rotate. So you have the light side and the black side of the moon.
Mm-hmm. So
you have that dichotomy between humans and angels, light and dark, all that sort of stuff. So there's a chance here that we're using the moon as a creation myth.
There is absolutely a creation myth that goes on here.
Yeah.
That's what I can say.
Okay. Man. Okay.
So
who wants to take this part?
Do you want to, Michael, or do you want me?
So I can take it. So Kaworu breaks into Nerve, which is what we find out, that he's been sent to do. And without actually doing anything other than standing in front of it, he takes control of and awakens Unit 2.
So he has that angel power to activate the Avas, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And earlier we didn't talk about it, but we saw him doing tests, and he could just he could sync perfectly with any of the Avas up and down to any degree.
Right. And we find out later that he can actually set his sync rate at will.
Which is all just because he's manufactured and he's an angel. It's that part. What sucks is, I have to say this out loud right now. It sucks that they spend so much time explaining this sync rate stuff and they don't explain what it means. Because later on in these last 2 episodes, I finally get it with Asuka and why her sync rate is all over the place. And nowhere along the path, other than telling me it's her period, and other than saying, an angel can come in and sync perfectly with something, which we'll get to why.
Right.
They don't. They could have spent so much time making this deeper and more meaningful and more impactful for the characters rather than what they ended up doing. Anyway, they just go for it here with Kaworu.
Right. And they're like, okay, Shinji, get in the robot. Go kill your best friend.
Him. Yeah.
Yeah. Man. What did you think? Okay, they have the conversation. It's devastating to Shinji in a way that is palatable this time, unlike the Toji scenes earlier in the show.
Right.
Again, it could be that moment of, God, if you wanted to really think and stop and make this show symbolism, this is God sacrificing himself, right, for the benefit of man.
Yeah.
He tells him to kill him. He says, sacrifice me so that humanity can go on. You deserve to live.
Well, because he gets there, right, to Terminal Dogma and is there to unite with Adam, only to discover the giant crucified thing is Lilith and not Adam.
Correct. Sorry.
Yep.
That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. And then he's like, oh, well, damn it. And then he was like, my job here is to unite with Adam and cause the third impact.
Yeah. But I don't want to do it.
Which he then says to Shinji, you know what, I would rather you not, and you deserve to live instead.
Right. Which maybe messes up somebody else's plans we'll get to later, I guess.
And then Shinji kills him.
After the scene, what did you think of that frozen shot there?
It is a real artfully arranged piece there, I think.
Yeah, and I think it was a good way of expressing the hesitation with which Shinji has approached a lot of his role in all of this.
I'm glad we didn't see Shinji screaming and crying the whole time, and that we got the idea from the outside that he just sat there to think about what he had to do.
Yeah.
Which was accept that it's so easy. You can rewrite this stuff so easily, accept that Jesus knew he needed to go, right? Like, there you go. Bam. There's your religious reference.
Except that he's not a child of Lilith, so he's like the angel's version of Jesus.
I know, it's not a non-perfect situation, right? This is what I'm saying. Like, you spent an extra 4 or 5 hours rewriting this, and you've got a very interesting recreation of creation myth and rapture and all that sort of stuff.
I think that the problem, I agree with you that totally you would totally do that. It would not be that hard.
It's there. It's just not there.
The thing is that the people writing the show didn't have the background to write that.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. It's kind of disappointing to know that we're missing stuff because this is from Japan, and the Japanese writers miss stuff because none of them are Christians.
And I wonder too how much when this originally debuted did how was this part received, right? Did people just sort of gloss over all the references? Because it's not like now where I could just go out and Wikipedia who is Lilith.
Right.
So, this came out in the 96, mid 96, I think, on TV in Japan. It didn't make it to the US until like 97, 98. But absolutely, this was a phenomenon in Japan at the time. This is extremely famous. And so people were going back and watching every scene, analyzing every little frame, every time a word flashes on screen, all that stuff. So people picked it apart, kind of like
Marvel trailers.
Right, exactly like modern fandoms do. So, and then by the time, it came out in the US, like there was tons of information out there.
You know what this
if you
reminds
wanted
me
to
of?
look.
At the end of this show, I was reminded of Lost.
I had that same thought earlier.
Right?
Yeah.
Having never watched any of Lost, but knowing how it ends.
Oh, Michael.
No, I think it's a fair comparison.
No, not watching it, though.
I can give you my thoughts on that later.
Okay, fair enough. I'm just surprised. Okay. We have to do the last 2 episodes today.
Yes,
because otherwise
we
we're not going to get to the movie. And do we have enough time to do the last 2 episodes?
Yeah.
I mean, how much do you want to talk about?
They're kind of one
is
big
that?
episode.
Okay,
Yes, they are.
They're one big episode. That is true. It's one episode split into 2 parts, literally.
Yes.
They're
And
broken down into almost 2 parts. One is the quote-unquote trial of each major character of the show.
Sure, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the compilation of those realizations into Shinji's moment at the end of the show. And that's like the 2 parts. And then there's maybe a metaphysical question of where are the actual people?
So from this stuff, do you guys kind of have any idea what instrumentality actually is?
Not entirely, but I get the picture that Gendo has killed everyone.
So I think what I pieced together is that they set up this idea that everybody has I think they describe it as a hole in their heart, but it is a piece of themselves that they are forever missing, which they spend their life either lamenting or running away from. And so the Instrumentality Project is an attempt to fix that hole by merging humankind into one great entity, I guess.
So yeah, that is how I understand what instrumentality means. And kind of, I think these 2 episodes together sort of present the interiority of all these characters, right? We kind of just get their thoughts about what's happening here as instrumentality gets going and then kind of proceeds forward. And then at some point we stop getting anyone else's thoughts and we just get Shinji's thoughts.
Well, yeah, because it says that in the text at the beginning that it would take too long to tell everyone's story, so they're going to show you an example, and that example is Shinji.
There's a lot of stuff in here that gets revealed, and some of it could mean some stuff that probably the movie answers and or debunks to me. But there's some big moments here where you understand, like, if reality is real, if what we have watched up until episode 25 is actually real and has happened, right? That Asuka's mother is in Eva too.
Mm-hmm.
Which has never been said explicitly before, right? And that
Sure, but we had the idea who was in Eva 1 though, right?
Right, we knew who was in Eva 1, but it's never, you're never told that, like, manufacturing the Evas requires the souls of the parents of these children to be in them.
I mean, I think that is the point of the revelation there, right? To sort of show you how.
Right, with Asuka's revelation here is like, hey, by the way, she's having sync problems because her mother's crazy.
And also because, she can't bring herself to love her mother and the physical manifestation of her mother, the Ava, therefore.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Therefore her sync rate starts plummeting.
So there's there's like big reveals here
Absolutely,
for the show that don't mean anything because this show, I mean, I guess ends or doesn't end, we don't know, but by the end of this, we're left with the idea maybe that they're all manifestations of Shinji? Possibly? Did anybody else get that reading from this?
No, I don't think I got that they're all manifestations of Shinji, only because they use Shinji as an example of what everyone goes through, right? And I think I took it as everyone experiences some version of exactly what Shinji went through. So
if you're taking this thing on its
through,
face,
sure, yeah, Asuka would have gone through a similar thing in, with Shinji probably as a part of it.
Yeah.
So the easy read here is that these are all the versions of other people that Shinji sees, right?
Right.
It's like, this is Shinji's version of Asuka and Shinji's version of Rei.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which then is really just Shinji because this is all in his head.
That's what I'm trying to get to here, is that we may believe that the other people in the show have gone through this, but the only trueness in these last two episodes is that Shinji has these other people that he has concocted in his head. And some of them are not good versions of the people that we watched in the show.
Yeah, absolutely not.
The connection to, and I loved some of this, was pretty great. Like that scene at the beginning with why did you kill him? Why did you kill him? Is that why you killed him? That stuff is very good, and like kind of wish that it was this type of stuff was spread out more into the show instead of 2 episodes at the end. But I wonder, what did you think of the real life photos, like the still life black and whites from construction and Japan streets and stuff like that? What is that? Are we supposed to assume that instrumentality is bringing people into reality in a way, or what? I don't get that part.
I don't know. I was probably a little confused by it, seeing it the first time. Thinking about it again, I wonder if maybe it's just to reinforce the blurring of lines of reality and what is real.
Yeah.
I kind of took it as there's this is the outside world is also involved in this.
Okay.
But there's certainly other readings here, I think, that you could get if you want. There's a lot of ambiguity in what happens in both of these 2 episodes. If you want to read it various ways, I think there's very supportable arguments for what's going on here.
We end with him saying I want to be me, right? And that leads back to JJ, your reading of Kaworu and what does it mean to be Shinji? Is Shinji only upset that his father doesn't love him, or is Shinji needing of acceptance from people related to the fact that he doesn't accept things about himself? Is he, gay? Is he what is he? And it doesn't answer that question entirely, does it? What is it that he wants to be that he isn't? Or what is it that he's accepting that he isn't? Did you guys get a reading out of that other than what we all kind of grabbed out of that Kaworu scene, maybe?
It is a really, so it, as reading it as a person struggling with depression, right? It kind of is like an admission that, hey, like I have this issue.
Yes.
And it's not going to go away, but I still would rather be me than face the oblivion of the world with no lines and floating empty in space where no one can hurt me.
Right, the LCL scene from earlier where he chose to come back to reality.
Or I mean, the scene even earlier in this episode where he's just floating as a pencil sketch in a formless void, right?
Yep, and they give him a line to be the ground and say, he's achieved some sort of up and down, but has lost a degree of freedom.
Right. So to be truly free and by himself, in the formless void, no one can hurt him. But, at the end, he chooses to be himself despite all the other things that can hurt him, in that reality.
So our reading of him might be too deep in a way of saying whatever your issue is as Shinji, it could be as general as I need to accept myself so that I'm not living a life that I shouldn't, like everyone has to do on a daily basis, right? Like I have to accept my financial means so I don't buy things I shouldn't. I have to accept my personal failings on eating too much pizza, like personally I do, like things like that.
And they even they show him an alternate reality, right? The like domestic comedy where Gendo is the father and his mother is there, and Asuka is his, Masato is the teacher, and
right, yeah.
And they're like, "Hey, would you rather have this? We could do this." And he eventually ends up rejecting that also in order to be himself.
I seem to have gotten, when we hit that is where I seem to get lost personally on what the show was trying to say. And that's where I got into thinking about, well, what does all this other stuff mean if the end of this show is literally just saying, like, do you want to live in reality or not? Because we don't get a hard meaning of how they got to this place where, other than assuming that Gendo killed them, which is a scene that we see very early on in the instrumentality episodes.
Yeah, Misato and Ritsuko.
Just shot on the floor, assuming he killed Kaji as well earlier. He's just going around murdering everyone.
There are a few cuts of stuff happening, right? Like you see like Eva 2 at the bottom of a lake at one point. You see like, those pictures of Misato and Ritsuko dead. So there's like hints that stuff is happening outside, right? But we don't really see any of that. We just sort of see the interior here.
So we lose a little bit of the storytelling here for the cool factor of like, ooh, look at this alternate reality, and we start to lose the thread of like, what are they in a machine? Are they dead? Are they what? It's great to wonder what the instrumentality stuff means and what the metaphysics of this show means, if it means something, but beyond saying, okay, cool, you went into a machine and now you accept yourself, what does it mean to have been in these two episodes? And that's where I started to lose the thread, is when, oh, well, what about this alternate reality? It's like, well, wait, hold on. Are we actually talking like reality is being ripped apart by some sort of impact around them? The instrumentality project has taken their souls out. We've seen before that the LCL, you can return to the womb essentially, right? Like, because there's a reading of that where the Ava is his mother.
Some of these questions are why I wish we had watched the movie.
I see. Okay. Well, that's good that we're talking it out now, and then we'll get some cool answers for the next episode.
But unfortunately for you, I don't think all of them are. I can't tell you which ones. Doing some stuff, but it is so imagine, right, these episodes come out here in I'm looking at a wiki, April 96.
Okay.
This is the text of the show. The show is done.
Did they know there was a movie coming?
No.
Was a movie coming at the time?
I don't think so.
Oh.
And the movie comes out in late 97. So there's a whole year and change in between these two where this is the show. Like, there's nothing else here.
I can understand how that there must have been some furious debate over exactly what was going on then.
And I believe the fan community was enraged at the ending.
Oh, they were at the time, really? Because now those episodes seem to be critically quite popular.
Yes, and they are very critically popular. Like specifically 26, and I think 24 are some of the most well-liked anime episodes, period.
24 is a fantastic episode for on its merits. If you take out, all the Christian stuff that you could try to read into it, on its merits is a good episode of anime. It's all the good parts of anime.
Yeah,
right. And 26 feels like maybe like a first introduction to experimental filmmaking. And like a guy who watched his first David Cage movie or something, or not David Cage, sorry. oh my gosh, I'm spacing so bad. The Twin Peaks guy.
Which one?
The oh my god.
Are you talking about the director?
David Lynch.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I was like, I lost the thread of what you were trying to say.
Sorry, I was talking about, I don't know why I said David Cage. Lynch. He's like, he watched his first Lynch movie and was like, oh, I can do this crazy stuff.
Well,
and was like, here we go.
Did he have the hair for it? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I haven't seen the creator's hair. I don't know if he's viable there. But, you know, for sure it is a wild piece of what was his theory, like, you know, over the air television in the late 90s.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So, you know, I think, there is no answer here for most of this stuff, in my opinion, and, you know, sort of the wider internet. I think there's like 500 different ways you can read a lot of this.
Are we constrained by not having read the manga? I know we missed some stuff because we haven't done the movie yet.
I don't know what happens in the manga. I've never read it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Maybe to close it out, we should do a favorite moment from these 26 episodes. Does anybody have one that sticks out to you?
I will say that I really like some of those middle episodes where you get the children and the Avas doing the robot stuff. That episode where Asuka dives into the magma was one of my favorites. And then of course also 24 for a whole bunch of reasons.
I have to say, going back with knowledge from the end of the show, especially from episode 24, where Rey seems to realize, or at least let on, that she knows she's an angel with Lilith inside her, right? Which explains why the Lilith body never does anything, maybe. Because in 24, they say, you know, there's another AT field down there with Kaworu, and it's not Ava 1. We get the idea that it's Rey because she's standing there watching the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's makes her suicide in the earlier episodes much more impactful to me. Because I wonder about, like, whether or not, and it might be me reading stuff into the show or whatever, but whether her possession by Lilith means that, like, hey, I'm willing to sacrifice myself over and over again to keep you guys alive. That's pretty cool, I think. And it was a good scene. Like, aside from all that, it was a very good scene because you finally gotten to care about her a little bit, even though she's kind of a snob most of the time. And she's ready to just go for it. And it's pretty cool. I don't know. That's maybe one that stands out to me. Maybe because it's later in the show, but Michael?
Can I say Ava DDR?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Of course you can.
Dude.
That was just a great
Double dancing Avas was fantastic.
Yeah.
But I really liked episode 21, one of the ones we just talked about, where you finally get a lot of the pieces filled in about what is going on.
Right.
Knowing stuff from the ends of these and going back and watching the series again gives you a different perspective on a lot of the stuff for sure.
I'm sure it does.
Which one would assume, because it was a manga first, right? Or was it not?
Not clear to me.
Maybe
I don't
not.
know.
Maybe it's not a manga first. Let's find that. If you know whether it was a manga first, since we don't do research. I mean, we tried to do a little research because we wanted to, like, talk about the show. Although we're never going to be experts on this kind of thing. Let us know. Where would they let us know, JJ?
That's podcast@weweregamers.com.
All right. It's not anime at weweregamers.com? We don't have that.
No. There's also our Facebook at We Were Gamers, Instagram We Were Gamers, We Were Gamers on YouTube. Like, subscribe, all that stuff.
Nice. We'll do the movie next.
Yes.
I think we have to at this point.
The end of Evangelion.
Okay, that's what's up next. And we'll look up a few of these answers maybe before next time. No promises. If there are answers.
The truth is out there.
Ooh. We don't have time to do an X-Files rewatch.
Oh, no, we don't. Let's do it.
We gotta do Star Wars. Lowest score, not usual for you.
Yeah. I made every wrong choice, and I started a guy who got 0, and then it all just went downhill. My defense got me -1.
Yeah.
I still don't believe... I don't understand... There's no better really way to do defenses if they are especially bad, because you should punish people for picking bad ones, but negative points always feel so bad.
So
Especially
and like I can't even claim that they didn't do anything, because they also had a fumble recovery and a sack.
Yeah, I've had games where you have like 4 sacks, and you're like, okay, well, they did the things they're supposed to do. Their offense just fumbled the ball away 4 times, and then they lost, by 37-10,
Yeah.
Yeah. I've played in leagues where you can't go below 0.
I've literally had a defense go negative because the other team scored 2 interception touchdowns.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
like,
I've had it happen to me too.
How is that on the defense?
Yeah, it just sucks. Like, any points are suddenly the defense's fault when, like, they may not have been on the field except for the play where the other team ran it into the end zone.
Unlike kickers, where you could probably remove them and do okay in terms of making the league still even. I think you have to keep defenses, but I wish...
Dude, kickers are so many points for some of them, though. Like, literally, there are some kickers who are, like, 15 to 20 points a week.
I know.
Yeah, but it's
And
not
there are
always
some that are like
always
3.
consistent, though.
Dude, I don't know. Some teams. But anyway, yeah, we're...
My headphones were all twisted.
Man.
Don't get it twisted.
You sound good.
Yeah, of course.
I love that OBS updated without my permission, but, it seems to be okay.
23.2.1.
Yeah, see, now I'm on 24.01.
Oh, you're on that 24.0 life. That's scary.
I didn't want to be here, but it just opened and it was like updating. I was like, wait, who asked for this? And then it just did it.